Let me know how it sounds, you guys. Let me know if it's too loud, if it's too quiet. You know what the dealio helio is. Let me go ahead and see this. Go right there. Pull this boy up. Nope, that's not what I wanted to click. Alright, can you hear me decently, or how's this sounding? Says I'm offline. Why does it say that I'm offline? Hmm? Yeah, I wonder. Interesting. Alright, well, hey guys, it's been a little while since, your man Mark with Flame has 348 views. Jeez, that's crazy. Yeah, it must have been Parvision and Dax videos to get the draws, man. They got them good cooking ideas. Can you read chat on the screen? Can you hear me decently well enough? Am I like scratchy or too quiet? Let me know, cause yeah, just want to make sure you guys can hear me. I think it's the tags like Par and Dak. So make sure to tag at anyone you were. Yeah, for sure. I definitely think it was those. Um, all right. Well, what we're gonna be talking about is NorsePiece. 368. That's crazy. But yeah, what we're gonna be going through and talking about is NorsePiece, and what we're gonna go ahead and do. Um, I've been okay. I've been all right. Been suffering through copious amounts of heat stroke and trying to figure out how to do things at a decent enough pace that's maintainable, and then also trying to figure out, yeah, just like susceptible to it because of my medicine and things like that. It makes it so I perspire way easier. So basically, I'll drink like 4 or 5 water bottles worth of water in the span of like 2 or 3 hours, and most of that will be on the ground by the end of that 3 hour period. I would have sweated it out. Um, but yeah, what we're gonna be going through and looking at is kind of the beginning of the Norse mythos. What some of those, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is I just kind of got to get it to a place where it's maintainable for myself, and then I can like be able to do the creative things that I want to be able to do and whatnot, obviously. So I was also kind of thinking about setting it up so that way I could also have a cam on my phone, and then I could stick it up above and then draw and use my sketchbooks and stuff like that, because I'm a very I like handwriting things out. It helps for some reason with like processing for me. Um, I've been thinking about doing that. I think that would be it could be kind of fun where we're just like talking, riffing, drawing ideas, and word. How do I stream with my phone cam? Yeah, I think you have to get the. So the way I do it is I have the OBS app on my phone, and then obviously I use OBS. So that's just how I do like all my screen capture and stuff like that. Um, can you read what's on the screen, or is it not legible? I have a hard time because like looking at this, the screen is really small on my laptop, and the resolution ain't too good. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things. What do you think about the thumbnail, by the way? I also wanna like, I kind of wanna like, when I finally get it set up, I would kind of like to like sketch stuff and then like use those as the basis for generating AI art and things like that, and then going through and prompting in the right way. Got so many ideas in the works, fam. Can't wait to talk to y'all again for real. Catch up, animate, yes, for sure. This break was def needed. Hey, bro, you don't have to say thank you. I just planted the seed, and you decided to take care of it yourself. We're all about staying in mental health capacity and taking care of yourself and making sure that you're doing good. That's number one priority. Chat good and thumbnails fire. Good. I spent about 30-40 minutes workshopping it between a bunch of different AIs to like with different prompts and tweaking different things and bouncing it around and changing some stuff. I also have a bunch of other backlog stuff that I can use to throw out there, like sync into places. It's honestly really fun, bro. Nah, you gave me the last push I needed, bro. Thank you. Hey, listen. Again, we're all here for each other. Like, we're all about making sure that everybody is having fun, right? Like, one of our favorite characters is Joy Boy. You know, it's like the jolly guy, the guy who's just like laughing it up, fuzzball, that type of dude. You know, that's what we love. That's our series. You know, so we gotta make sure that we all hold on to that light. Yeah. But on that note, what we're gonna go ahead and do is, I think I'm going to try and translocate. Oh, already located it after looking at it for about 5 seconds. The Gjalfaginning, the beginning of the prose/poetic Edda, which is where you get the recap of the beginning of the Norse myth. Gjalfaginning, Old Icelandic, for meaning as in the tricking of Gylfri. I'm gonna listen to you in the background while I shower, get ready for my day. Been doing Uber deliveries and driver. Got 3 dealerships interested. Fuck yeah, bro. Keep popping. Proud of you, my dude. Get after it, but also like, you know, keep that heartbeat going. You know, that second wind. That's the one that's important. But yeah, the trickery of Gylfri follows the prologue in the prose Edda, so the prose Edda is like the like rewritten and like storyified version of the Norse mythos, and I believe it was put together by Snorri Snorkelson, and the prose or younger Edda commonly ascribed to Snorri Sturluson. Sturluson. Yeah. I think I've heard this talked about as kind of a less solid going off of, because it is more of like a reimagining / rewriting of the stories, so that way they're like more cohesive. But the prose Edda has this thing called the Gjalfaginning in it, which the poetic Edda I don't think does, from what I know. Let's find the composition. The Eddic poems are composed in alliterative verse. So one of the things that the Nords had, and a lot of those Northern European Saxon influence, Nordic influence, Gaelic, Celtic influence things had these guys called skalds, right? And you would probably traditionally call them a bard or something like that. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for stopping by, Ronnie. Love you, man. And you guys would probably traditionally know these guys as bards, right? And that's how they pop up in like most current modern day media and whatnot. That is, you know, the traditional singer, story writer that goes around sharing stories, carrying with them like mythoses and things like that, and telling stories that supposedly have power. Now, specifically, the skalds would be vocally more active. They were orators and singers, right? So they would carry on these alliterative verses like they're talking about. But they were made as mnemonic ways of keeping track of the stories, obviously. Like, I downloaded YouTube back, bro, and I've been slowly trickling back into Discord. I'm here. Feel free to add me whenever now, and I'll respond when free. Yeah, no problem, bud. No problem. I'm just chitter-chattering. Chibber-chabbering. Okay. W-stream. Thank you. But yeah, so as far as I'm aware, the Poetic Edda is probably that which was passed down to and kept alive by the tradition of vocal oration and storytelling like that. As far as I'm aware, I don't have, bro, I can't, I have to like find copyright free stuff to play. Here, you know what? I got you. Copyright free. Let me think. Is Danheim copyright free? I can check. Anime lo-fi on Spotify. Yeah, but I kind of want something to fit the mood, Come on, bro. Danheim. Or I have 31 beats I've made over a decade ago. Is he... I don't know if he is copyright free. How do you tell if someone's stuff is free? Nordic and folk, support me, get my music, license my music. Oh, okay, well, it's not free. That sucks. Oh, wait, no. He said, feel free to use my music in your YouTube/Twitch videos as long as you credit me /link to my channel in the description. Yeah. Nah, I got you. I got this figured out, bro. I got it. This guy is one of my favorite artists. Here's what we gonna do. I'm not gonna take his videos, but I'm gonna just put that boy in the background. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna pause this guy. Or for future Google copyright free music in the genre you want. Yeah, I mean, that would be the easiest way to do it. Bro, are you gonna... Handu hanna tu atu atau friru Danu hamna tu atu atau Bro, how do I share his channel? Here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna go back. This is taking a while to load. Oh, that would be why it's taking a while to load, because it's still trying to play music. I do not like. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna click copy. We're gonna come all over here. We're gonna edit the description. We're going to scroll down and we're going to say background music, and then we're gonna copy and paste Danheim. Alright, there we go. That is updated. Alright, now we should be all Gucci good to I'm gonna head out right now, make some money, then you definitely want a game later, maybe much later after work, 4 to 10 for like a housework to do, prepping, painting, Pete's website, no shoutouts needed. Thank you, brother. I'll check it out later, and I'll probably figure out some way to get it all going. I do not want this. Do I? No, I don't. Alright, y'all let me know if this bitch is too loud, alright? It's too loud. Alright, can you hear that? Or is it not good sounding? Let me know, please, if that sounds alright. But yeah, so today we're just gonna be talking a little bit about the Poetic Eddas, a little bit about the actual Norse mythology, how it was set up, passed down. We're gonna kind of go through the Wikipedia articles a little bit. You can raise volume some. For me or for who? Like the music is low or I'm low? What's up, Angel's Room? How are you doing? Alright, but is there like an echo? You can't, is that better? How is do I sound okay? Slash is there an echo that's going on? It seems like there's probably an echo going on. You sure? You said it's perfect. That's crazy. Okay. No echo? It shows that my microphone is picking it up, but it's so strange. I guess I could just do this. And that doesn't really impact what you guys can hear, does it? Ah, that's lovely. That's much better. Okay. How's this sound? Is this like better balance for everything? Am I clear? Am I loud enough? You guys don't have to like, I'm louder than music. Music a good volume. Time to cook. Alright, bro. Yes, it is time to cook, bro. Thank you all for coming by. Angel's Room 659. Welcome. I don't think I've seen you here before. Thank you. This is primarily One Piece channel right now, but we're about to kind of dive into talking about the Nordic mythos and how it could potentially apply to One Piece. Obviously, we have the potential for the Elbaf arc coming up, and I don't think it would be very fair for most of us to say that it doesn't seem reasonable that it wouldn't be in some way influenced by Nordic culture or themes, or not depending, but predicated on the fact that both Shanks and Dorian Broggie have consistent like Viking and Icelandic themes throughout them. That's Angel. I don't know who Angel is, bro. My brain, listen, brain no worky good. I feel like I hope I don't insult them by forgetting. Um, Always love the world serpent concept, especially when you think about the red line. Yeah, for sure. That popped up in Mr. Morge's recent video where he was talking about Dorian Brogy's reference to it when they do their Haukoku sovereignty um, off of Little Garden on the big old goldfish. The only thing that can withstand it is the giant serpent that snakes around the world that is soaked in blood, right? That thing. He kind of cited that quite a bit, but I definitely believe that there's probably some big parallels for that at least. I mean, even if you're just like sitting at the top of the world tree and you look out and there's a big old red thingy wrapped around most of the world, you're gonna be like, maybe it's the world serpent, you know? Like that is pretty interesting. What episode of Hell's Paradise we on? Not yet, right? Back. What is the paralysis power was used on the world serpent? Oh, like what if? Okay. Like the petrification, I could see it, you know? Maybe that's why. Maybe that was why Blackbeard wanted the wanted the fruit so he could unpetrify the giant serpent. The giant serpent. Nice. We can continue a few episodes tonight if you want to, fam. Just gotta wake up early. Alright. But alright, fans. Let's get going. Whilst the Poetic Edda is probably more historically accurate, Jesus, to what people probably believed and what people probably promulgated in their day-to-day lives, it is unfortunately ridiculous to deal with in terms of trying to figure out what things mean, what they're saying, and the connotations that are carried by the way that they're saying it, you know. But insofar as what we're going to be going through, I kind of want to look more at the prose Edda than I do at the Poetic Edda. Although the Poetic Edda is probably the better one to dive into if you want the more accurate sources of things and understanding of whatnot. Ooh, Blackbeard wants to unpetrify the Kraken. That's an interesting one. Kraken, huh? Interesting. Alright. I'm kind of going to read this first portion of the composition for the Poetic Edda, and then I want to move over to the Prose Edda and talk about that. The Eddic poems are composed in alliterative verse. Most are fornynithig, while Manaharter is a common variation. Speech form is a common variation. The rest, about a quarter, are composed of Yirth, Yorthater is song form. The language of the poems is usually clear and relatively unadorned. Kennings are often employed, though they do not arise as frequently, nor are they as complex as those found in the typical skaldic poetry. Authorship. Like most early poetry, the Eddic poems were minstrel poems, passed orally from singer to singer, from poet to poet for centuries. None of the poems are attributed to a particular author, though many of them show strong individual characteristics and likely to have been worked from individual poets, while scholars have speculated on hypothetical authors. Firm and accepted conclusions have never been reached. Right now, it seems to be Danheim's Runar. I dropped his channel in the description, so you can just hop over there and listen to all of his music. He's probably one of my favorite sort of folk Nordic artists. He does a lot of really, really good ambiance-based stuff, and I use a lot of his things for when I'm doing like D&D or running crazy intense scenes. It's really, really good. But yeah, like I was saying, it seems like for at least the Poetic Edda, it was that sort of natural orator tradition of carrying these sort of songs and ideas and things like that to be promulgated, as well as these stories. There's a large line to be had between um, the differences that kind of happen over time between oral tradition and written tradition, right? Because written tradition tends to become more flowery and more esoteric and sort of building upon the basis of itself, whereas oral tradition is more about the condensation and like removing of aspects that are extraneous and unneeded to the point and moral of the story. Um, and I think the things that can arise from that are quite different, which is fundamentally one of the hardest parts about dealing with having these two as the main sources for having these two for the main sources of historical reference for the Nordic mythos. But yeah, so it seems like the at least Eddic poems that are to be dubbed have dated from around the year 1000. Interesting. Other dating criteria is 1000. No, wait, what was the before that? 10th century, composed in the latter half of the 10th century. Yeah, for sure. Art. Are you talking about the song, or are you talking about the different forms of art composed in like writing and stuff? Man, it's real hard to riff off of these one words. It's like, oh man. But from the 10th century. But it is also possible that the Havamal, or at least the Strop in question, is the younger derivative work. Interesting. Alright. Alright, I wanted to kind of get into this. So, these are the parts to the poetic Edda, at least so as confirmed as the mythological parts, right? So you have in the Codex Regius, right? So this is like the main sort of recorded documentation of these things. You have the Voluspo, which is the wise woman's prophecy, the prophecy of the seeress the seeress's prophecy. The Voluspo and the Havamal are probably the most well-known aspects of the mythological poetic Edda. At least as so far as I've come across in most like large-scale like media that's been depicted. And most of the other stuff is a little bit further from what you would totally think of as the basis for things. Like Varfrundismal, and then you have the Grimmismar, and then you have the Skirnismar, and then the Harbarthsol, and then you have the Himskivida. Himskvida, which is Hymir's poem. Interesting. Loksvana, that's about Loki. Interesting. Some of these I don't know about. And then you have, going further, Balder. So Balder is the one who is traditionally associated with the sun in most of Greek, or not Greek, Nordic mythos. Dude. Okay. Let me wake up a little bit. Alrighty. But yeah, what the Poetic Edda is basically is just a bunch of different mythological stories contained as song poetry and then passed on. The two most popular of which that I know of are the Voluspol and the Havamal. But most of the other stuff I don't seem to know too much about, insofar as deep delving on the actual nameage. Heroic lays. After the mythological poems, the Codex Regius continues with the heroic lays, which are about mortal heroes, examples of Germanic heroic legend. The heroic lays are to be seen as a whole in the Edda, but they consist of 3 layers: the story of Helgi Hundisbani, the story of the Nibelungs, and the story of Jormunrekkr, king of the Goths. These are respectively Scandinavian, German, and Gothic in origin. As far as historically can be ascertained, Attila, Jormunrekkr, and Brunhildr actually existed, taking Brunhildr to be partly based on Brunhilde of Austrasia. But the chronology has been reversed in poems. Interesting. So they kind of flipped the lay of the timeage of things. Jormunrekkr. Gudrun's inciting, the Ballad of Hamdir. Several of the legendary sagas contained in the poetry in the Eddic style. Their age and importance is often difficult to evaluate, but the Hörvarar saga in particular contains interesting poetic interpolations. Okay, so here are the English translations for some of them, supposedly. The Jotuns I remember, early born, those who me of old have reared, I 9 worlds remember, 9 trees, the great central tree beneath the earth. There was, in times of old, where Ymir dwelt, nor sand nor sea, nor gelid waves. Earth existed not heaven above. 'Twas a chaotic chasm, and grass nowhere. With target circle, every target Interesting. So this is from the Voluspol. A comparison of the second and third verses of the Voluspol is given below. And this is probably what is detailed through the Gjalfaginning in the Prose Edda, because this is all talking about Ymir and all of the sort of Alright, so this is where the Voluspol goes into what is commonly known as the founding myth of Ymir and things like that. So what we're going to do is hop over to the Prose Edda, because the Prose Edda at this point I think will probably remain a little bit more interpretable for us, because obviously the Poetic Edda is like composed of a bunch of different facets that are thousands of years old, potentially. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't have like a master's degree in Old Norse linguistics, even though I would really love to have that. I would love to, like, I like learning all of that stuff, and I love researching it and looking into it and listening to people's educated takes and stuff, but yeah, I don't know about you guys. It's a little hard to read Old Norse, if you get my drift. But at this point, we're going to go ahead and jump into reading the Wikipedia portion for the Prose Edda, because obviously, like I've been saying, I feel like it'll be more accurate for us to go through. So, the Prose Edda, also known as the Younger Edda or Snorri's Edda, or historically simply as the Edda, is an Old Norse textbook written in Iceland, particularly during the early 13th century. Now keep in mind that that's 300 years of time span between when this was historically written and documented and when the Poetic Edda probably was presumed to have started in circulation as an oral tradition. Right? So that's a 300-year gap of time and play and historiological manipulation and changing of the mythologies and blending of certain ideologies and understandings and worldviews from around the world, right? The work is often considered to have been to some extent written or at least compiled by the Icelandic scholar, law speaker, and historian Snorri Sturluson, circa around 1220. Wow, 1220. A full 220 years, some odd, potentially. It is considered the fullest and most detailed source for modern knowledge of Norse mythology. Important to note. Hey, just stopping by to hit the like button, say enjoy the rest of your stream, stay safe. Thank you for stopping by, TJ. I am talking about the Prose Edda NorsePiece, so feel free to check back into the VOD later, because I think this is probably going to contain a bunch of fun stuff for you to think about and, get your noodles going. It is considered the fullest and most detailed source for modern knowledge of Norse mythology, the body of myths of the northern Germanic peoples. Now that's a very broad term, right? The northern Germanic peoples is a huge swath and draws from a wide variety of sources, including versions of poems that survive into today, collectively known as the Poetic Edda, which is what we were just talking about. Okay? The Prose Edda consists of 4 sections. The prologue, a euhemerized account of the Norse gods, Gjalfaginning, which provides a question and answer format that details aspects of Norse mythology consisting of approximately 20,000 words, so like a small novella, basically. Skaldskaparmal, which continues this format before providing lists of kennings and heiti, around 50,000 words, which is like a short novel. And Hatamal, which discusses the composition of traditional skaldic poetry, approximately 20,000 words. So that's 90k. That's like a full epic fantasy novel length of written word. Dating from 1300 to 1600, 7 manuscripts of the Prose Edda differ from one another in notable ways. So there's 7 versions across the span of 300 years. Imagine this, bro. 7 versions of your culture's mythos across 300 years, maybe 600 years, right? Because they originally started as oral traditions carried down and then were re-recorded, rewritten, reinterpreted multiple times into conglomerated sections. That's hilarious. 7 manuscripts of the Prose Edda differ from one another in notable ways, which provides researchers with independent textual value for analysis. The Prose Edda appears to have functioned similarly to a contemporary textbook, with the goal of assisting Icelandic poets and readers in understanding the subtleties of alliterative verse, and to grasp the meaning behind the kennings used in skaldic poetry. They literally, it's basically a grimoire. It's like a magic book. It teaches you the myths and legends about your world, but it teaches you in a way that makes you understand poetry and how to, orate and sing those things in a way that continues on the Poetic Edda's, influence and the skaldic poetry influence. That's really crazy to me. I did not know that. That's pretty fucking cool. Originally known to scholars simply as the Edda, the prose Edda gained its contemporary name in order to differentiate it from the poetic Edda. Early scholars of the prose Edda suspected that there once existed a collection of entire poems, a theory confirmed with the rediscovery of manuscripts of the poetic Edda. So there were original compilations of the poems that were passed down and traditionalized through 300 years until potentially the first guy, Snorri Sturluson, conglomerated them about 300 years after their final, or not final, but after their potential initial immersion into the Nordic culture. And then another 300 years go by and you only have 7 versions. 7 like documented, kept versions of those things. And you're like, we lost the originals and nobody knows how to do it. And then like you find an old poem and it's like just a standalone and you're like, oh, dude, what an artifact that would be. Poetry, huh? So you're telling me that there's 7 books of poetry that sing and contain the information about how the universe was created and how the gods made the world to be? I don't know, man. 7's a pretty significant number, you know. What with the 7 seraphim and the 7 warlords and yeah. It's just pretty crazy, you know, to think about. We don't really need to look at the naming a whole lot, I don't think. What I want to do... Okay, let's look at the manuscripts. 7 manuscripts for the prose Edda have survived to the present day. 6 copies from the medieval period and another dating to the 1600s. No single manuscript is complete, and each has variations. In addition to 3 fragments, the 4 main manuscripts are Codex Regius, Codex Warmanius, Codex Trajectus, and Codex Obsolentius. Poneglyphs in the One Piece, maybe that's why we needed a musician. No, exactly. A skald? Yeah, yes sir. Yeah. What do you mean? You mean broken up texts of ancient knowledge conveyed in the form of potential music and rhythm? Oh, I love this song. This is one of my favorites. Alright, interesting. Codex Obsolentius provides some variants not found in any of the other 3 major manuscripts, such as the name Gjalfagring. Codex Regius, it is the most comprehensive of the 4 manuscripts and is received by scholars to be the closest, by scholars to be the closest to an original manuscript. This is why it is basis for the editions and translations of the prose Edda. Interesting. So the Codex Regius would be the equivalent of the 4 road poneglyphs, it seems like. And the other things would potentially be the other, taught musica. The other manuscripts and poneglyphs would be the other poneglyphs. This is why blah, 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 blah. Its name is derived from its conservation in the Royal Library of Denmark for several centuries. hundreds of ancient Icelandic manuscripts were returned from Denmark to Iceland, including the Codius Regius. Interesting. The other three manuscripts, I can't read that. Although some scholars have doubted whether a sound stemma of the manuscripts can be created due to the possibility of scribes drawing on multiple exemplars or from memory, recent work has found that main sources of each manuscript can be fairly readily ascertained. The Prose Edda remained fairly unknown outside of Iceland until the publication of the Edda Illandorum in 1665. That's crazy. 1665. So, a 600-year tradition from going from oral all the way up to written and then taught and then codified and then prosified. And it's still, wow. And this is just like the actual like real world documents and things. Like this isn't even like getting into the legends and things. Authorship: the text is generally considered to have been written or at least compiled by Snorri Sturluson. This identification is largely based on the following paragraph from the portion of Codex Obselius, an early 14th century manuscript containing the Edda. This book is called Edda. Snorri Sturluson has compiled it in the manner in which it is arranged here. There is first told about the Aesir and Ymir, and then Skaldaskaparmal, poetic diction and poetical names of many things. Finally, Hatamal, enumeration of meters and verse forms, which Snorri has composed about King Hakon and early Skoll. So he puts first the beginning of things, and then he gets into how to go about doing the poetry, and then he finally includes all of the different types of ways you can sing it in different verse forms. Okay. Scholars have noted that this attribution, along with that of other primary manuscripts, is not clear whether or not Snorri is more than the compiler of the work and the author of the Hatamal, or if he is the author of the entire Edda. Falk summarizes the matter of scholarly discourse around the authorship of the Prose Edda as follows. Snorri's authorship of the Prose Edda was upheld by the Renaissance scholar Egrimur Jonsson, and since his time it has generally been accepted without question, but the surviving manuscripts, which were all written more than half a century after Snorri's death, differ from each other considerably, and it is not likely that any of them preserves the work quite as he wrote it. A number of passages in Skaldaskaparmal especially have been thought to be interpolations, and this section of the work has clearly been subject to various kinds of revision in most manuscripts. It has also been argued that the prologue in the first paragraph and part of the last paragraph of the Gjalfaginning are not by Snorri, at least in their surviving forms. Alright, so let's kind of go down and break it down piece by piece, at least the little bit of it. So we have the prologue of the Prose Edda, which is the first section of the 4 books, consisting of the euhemerized Christian account of the origins of Norse mythology. The Nordic gods are described as human Trojan warriors who left Troy after the fall of that city. Now this is again the euhemerized Christian account. So this is them being like, our worldview dictates that you had to have come from the Greeks, Romans, and Troy, that sort of thing. And then following that diction about the original gods being Trojan warriors, you have the Gjalfaginning, which follows the prologue and the Prose Edda. Gjalfaginning deals with the creation and destruction of the world of the Nordic gods and many other aspects of Norse mythology. The section is written in prose, interspersed with quotes from Eddic poetry. Skaldaskaparmal is the third section and consists of dialogue between the Aegir, a Jotun, so particular giant, who is one of the various personifications of the sea, and Bragi, a skaldic god. This is a god of like poetry, singing, and ice, I think, in which both Norse mythology and discourse on the nature of poetry are intertwined. The origin of a number of kennings are given, and Bragi then delivers a systematic list of kennings for various people, places, and things. Bragi then goes on to discuss poetic language in some detail, in particular Haiti, the concept of poetical words which are non-paraphrasic. For example, steed for horse, and again, systemacies for these. This section contains numerous quotes from skaldic poetry. Interesting. So they're literally okay. So it's a discussion between an elder giant and the god of poetry and singing and storytelling, and they're talking about the importance of poetry to how the world works, if I'm interpreting that correctly. And then the Hatamal is a Icelandic poet. And it's just him reinterpreting the poetry. Interesting. And then you have the Old Norse versions. Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull up the Norse mythos. We're gonna pull up Nordic gods. And then we're also gonna click on Gylfaginning. And what we're gonna start with is the Gylfaginning. Gylfaginning, or the beguiling of Gylf, or the deluding of Gylf, is around the 13th century, is the first main part of the 13th century prose Edda after the initial prologue. So this is after detailing that they were originally people from Troy, which is the Christianized version. The Gylfaginning takes the form of a dialogue between a Swedish king and three men on thrones in Asgard called High, Just as High, and Third. Gylfi asks many questions of the three men on the history and future of the Aesir, and the Aesir are the particularly the gods of men, of particularly mortal men and things like that. The creation and eventual destruction of the world are described. Shut up. Sorry. Fucking ad was killing me. Asks about the history and future of the Aesir. The creation and eventual destruction of the world are described, as are many other aspects of Norse mythology. While the Gylfaginning never makes it explicit, the three are often presumed to be guises of Odin. Okay, so it's Odin probably potentially answering the questions about the fate of the Aesir, which he's the presumed leader of. The summary. He's tricked by one of the goddesses. Interesting. Inside the palace, he encounters a man. High, just as high, and third again. Challenged. Gangleri is then challenged to show his wisdom by asking questions, as is a custom in many sagas. Each question made to High, just as High, and third is about an aspect of Norse mythology and its gods, also about the creation and destruction of the world, Ragnarok, which, by the way, we should pull that up. In the end, the palace and its people vanish, presumably as they were illusions. Alrighty. It can be argued that the author used this as a narrative device as a means of being able to safely document the vanishing and largely oral tradition within a Christian context. In the same way, a line continues the idea raised in the prologue that Asgard is another name for the city of Troy. Another way to make stories of the Norse gods acceptable is describing a lost ancient history rather than rival deities to the Christian god. The very final section of the Gjalfaginning is also related to the Trojan connection to the Aesir, but it is discarded as a later edition written by a separate author than the rest of the work. Interesting. So, Asgard was Troy to the Christians. How interesting. Let's. I kind of want to find the beginning. Proto-Germanic. Yep, I know about that. Manuscripts such as the thunder god Thor, the raven-flying god Odin, goddess Freya, and numerous other deities. Sacred tree Yggdrasil. Yeah, let's go. I kind of want to find the beginning of the Norse mythos, though. So, Norse mythos, it's all written in alliterative verse, as already gone over. It's separated in sections. Okay, the mythology. Aesir, Vanir, and Jotnar. So the Jotnar are like giants. The Vanir are like the gods of the natural world. And then the Aesir are like the mortal men gods, / like gods of men. Central to the accounts of Norse mythology are the plights of God and their interactions with various other beings, such as the Jotnar, who may be friends, lovers, foes, or family members of the gods. Numerous gods are mentioned in the source text, as evidenced by the records of personal names and place names. The most popular god among the Scandinavians during the Viking Age was Thor, the thunder god, who was portrayed as unrelentingly pursuing his foes, his mountain-crushing thunderous hammer, Mjolnir in hand. In mythology, Thor lays waste to numerous Jotnar who are foes of the gods or humanity. He is wed to a beautiful golden-haired goddess named Sif. Odin gave up an eye at the tree to gain knowledge. Could be a connection to Zoro. Odin is portrayed as the ruler of Asgard, the leader of the Aesir. Trying to find in cosmology, Norse cosmology. Okay, this is the particular thing that I was wanting to maybe touch on here. In Norse cosmology, all beings live in the 9 worlds, supposedly, that center around the cosmological tree Yggdrasil. The gods inhabit the heavenly realm of Asgard, whereas humanity inhabits Midgard, a region at the center of the cosmos. Outside of the gods, humanity, and Jotnar, these 9 worlds are inhabited by beings, such as elves and dwarves. Travel between the worlds is frequently recounted in the myths, and the gods and other beings may interact directly with humanity. Numerous creatures live on Yggdrasil, such as the insulting messenger squirrel, Ratatoskr, and the perching hawk, Verðfallnir, Veothornir. The tree itself has 3 major roots, and at the base of one of these roots live the Norns, the female entities associated with fates. Elements of the cosmos are personified, such as the sun, Sol, a goddess, the moon, Mani, a god, and earth, Jord, as well as units of time such as day, Dagr, and night, Not, a Jotun. The afterlife is a complex matter in Norse mythology. The dead may go to the murky realm of Hell, a realm ruled over by a female being of the same name, may be ferried away by Valkyries to Odin's martial hall in Valhalla, or may be chosen by the goddess Freya to dwell in her field in Folkvangr. The goddess Ran may claim those that die at sea, and the goddess Grefon is said to be attended by virgins upon their death. Texts also make reference to reincarnation. Time itself is presented between cyclic and linear. Some scholars have argued that cyclic time frame was the original format for the mythology. Various forms of a cosmological creation story are provided in Icelandic sources, and references to a future destruction and rebirth of the world, Ragnarok, are frequently mentioned in some texts. Yeah, so I mean, that lines up a lot. It's pretty cyclical, right? With the repetition of themes, and you have Sol, a sun goddess, Mani, a moon god. Oh, you also have an earth goddess. Oh, and you have a day and night god. And a big old tree at the center. Let's find the next. What I want to find. Let's look. I don't want to look there actually. Frigg, Boulder. Kind of should look at Boulder maybe. Terminology, sources, hazy. Let's go to Ragnarok. Okay, in Norse mythology, Ragnarok is a foretold series of impending events, including a great battle in which numerous great Norse mythological figures will perish, including gods Odin, Thor, Tyr, Freya, Heimdall, Loki. It will entail a catastrophic series of natural disasters, including the burning of the world, and culminate in the submersion of the world under water, a great flood, one might say. After these events, the world will rise again. Cleansed and fertile, the surviving and returning gods will meet, and the world will be repopulated by two human survivors, Lif and Lifrasir. Ragnarok is an important event in Norse mythology and has been the subject of scholarly discourse and theory in Germanic studies. Yeah, okay, we don't need to look at etymology. Gjalfaginninga. In the prose Edda, Gjalfaginninga, various references are made to Ragnarok. Ragnarok is first mentioned in chapter 26, where the throned figure of Hai, king of the hall, so presumably Odin, tells King Gylfi some basic information about the goddess Idun, including that her apples will keep the gods young until Ragnarok. In chapter 34, Hai describes the binding of the wolf Fenrir by the gods, causing the god Tyr to lose his right hand, and in that Fenrir remains there until Ragnarok. As a consequence of his role in the death of the god Balder, Loki, described as father of Fenrir, is bound on top of three stones with the internal organs of his son Narfi, which are then turned into iron in 30 places. There, venom drops onto his face periodically from a snake placed by the Jotun Skathi. Loki's wife, Sigyn, collects the venom into a bucket, but whenever she leaves to empty it, the drops reach Loki's face, and the pain he experiences causes convulsions, resulting in earthquakes. Wait, Loki is responsible for the earthquakes? That's weird. Voluspol, Fimbulwinter. Hai relates that the great serpent Jormungandr. This is a good one. Okay, wait. Next, Hai describes that the wolf will swallow the sun. Alright, let's just rewind this back. Hai states that the first sign of Ragnarok will be Fimbulwinter, during which three winters will arrive without a summer, and the sun will be useless. Hai details that before these winters, 3 earlier winters will have occurred, marked with great battles throughout the world. During this time, greed will cause brothers to kill brothers, and fathers and sons will suffer from the collapse of kinship bonds. Hai then quotes stanza 45 of Voluspol. Hai describes that the wolf will swallow the sun, then his brother will swallow the moon, and mankind will consider the occurrence as a great disaster resulting in much ruin. The stars will disappear, The earth and mountains will shake so violently that the trees will come loose from the soil. The mountains will topple, and all restraints will break, causing Fenrir to free from his bonds. Yeah. Well, so imagine this as, rather than like Luffy making these happen, Lucia. The stars disappeared, the sky turned black, the earth and the mountains will shake so violently that mountains will topple and restraints will break. That doesn't sound like what happened with Lucia, do you? Sounds like what happened with Lucia and what happened in the ensuing earthquakes to me. Hai relates that the great serpent Jormungandr is also described as a child of Loki in the same source, will breach land as the sea violently swells onto it. The ship Nagfalar, described in the Prose Edda as being made from the human nails of the dead, is released from its mooring and sets sail on the surging sea, steered by the Jotun named Herm. At the same time, Fenrir, eyes and nostrils spaying flames, charges with his mouth wide open, his upper jaw reaching the heavens, his lower jaw touching the earth. At Fenrir's side, Jormungandr sprays venom throughout the air and sea. The sky splits in two, and from the split, fire rains, his sword brighter than the sun. They ride across the Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, where Fenrir, Jormungandr, Loki, and Herm join them. Heimdallr stands and blows the Gjallar horn with all his might. The gods awaken at the sound and they meet. Odin rides to Mimisbrunner in search of counsel from Mimir. Yggdrasil shakes, and everything, everywhere, fears. Yeah, the black ship. Pretty crazy. Hai relates that the Aesir and the Einherjar dress for war to the field. Yeah. Carries a spear and Gugnir. What's up, bro? We're going over some Nordic stuff right now. Just me. I did say we're going over, but at the beginning, Gangleri, so King Gylfi, asks what will be after heaven and earth and the whole world are burned. All the gods will be dead, together with the Einherjar and the whole of mankind. Didn't you say earlier that each person will live in the world throughout all ages? It's called Gimli Brimmer. Third, I'm just trying to skim through this and find the pertinent parts here. Original prose stating that the worst place of all to be is in Vegmilir, followed by a quote from the Volspol. Nidhoggr harasses the corpses of the dead in hell. Gylfi asks the gods if the gods will survive, that earth will appear once more from the sea, beautiful and green, where self-sown crops grow. The field Idavollr exists where Asgard once was, and there, untouched by Surtur's flames, Vidar and Vali reside, now possessing their father's hammer Mjolnir. Thor's sons, Modi and Magni, will meet them there, and coming from hell, Balder and Hordr also arrive. Together, they all sit and recount memories, later finding the gold game pieces the Aesir once owned. These two survivors consume the morning dew for sustenance from their descendants. The world will be repopulated. The personified sun, Sol, will have a daughter, at least as beautiful as she, and this daughter will follow the same path as her mother. And so ends the foretelling of Ragnarok in the Gjallarfaginninge. That's wild. Well, I mean, that sounds a lot like what happened with Lelucia, man. The stars will disappear, the earth and mountains will shake so violently that the trees come loose from the soil. The mountains will topple, and all restraints will break, causing Fenrir to break free from his bonds. The seas will swell and breach land violently as Jormungandr swims. I mean, raising sea levels, obliterating mountains, continuous earthquakes. It's pretty crazy, man. Did you know that Loki is the reason earthquakes happen? When, because he, like, gave birth to Fenrir and all of them, he gets tied down with his son's intestines, first off, on some stones, and has poison dripped onto his face all the time. And his wife catches the poison in a bucket, but when she goes to empty it, the poison hits him, so it hurts. And he convulses in pain when the poison hits him, and that's what earthquakes come from. That's wild, right? It's super crazy, bro. Could only expect destruction from Fenrir. They did not simply kill him, he was bound. The gods hold their sacred places and sanctuaries in such respect that they chose not to defile them with the wolf's blood, even though the prophecies foretold that he would be the death of Odin. Man, that seems a lot like the Gorosei being like, hey, we know this guy has the rubber fruit, but we're just not gonna fuck with him. You know? Theories and interpretations, modern influences. Well, that about covers kind of what I wanted to touch on for most of the beginning ties. I need to find where Ymir is born, and then we can talk about that. Beginning. Spol. I don't need Jormungandr, I don't need Fimbulwitr. I am looking for something in specific, please. Okay, well, we're just going to do this. Aesir and Vanir. Okay, let's go to the list of Aesir and Vanir. Wait, why would he be on there? He's not an Aesir, dummy. Ymir. Alrighty, in Norse mythology, Ymir, also called Argelmir, Brimir, or Butain, is the ancestor of all Jotnar. Ymir is attested in the Poetic Edda. That's what we were just looking at, from the 13th century. So, again, 300 years of play in time from when the first stories were probably starting to be orated by the skalds till it was recorded by Snorri in the 13th. Taken together, several stanzas from 4 poems collected in the Poetic Edda refer to Ymir as a primeval being who was born from Aetir, yeasty venom that dripped from the icy rivers called Eligvagar, and lived in the grassless void of Ginnungagap. Ymir gave birth to a male and a female from his armpits, and his legs together begat a 6-headed being, the grandsons of Buri. The gods Odin, Vili, and Ve fashioned the earth from his flesh, particularly, as I was saying, From his blood the ocean, from his bones the mountain, and from his hair the trees. From his brains the clouds, from his skull the heavens, and from his eyebrows the middle realm from which mankind lives, Midgard. In addition, one stanza relates that the dwarves were given life by the gods from Ymir's flesh and blood. In the prose Edda, a narrative is provided that draws from, adds to, and differs from the accounts in the poetic Edda. According to the prose Edda, after Ymir was formed from the elemental drops, so too was Audhumbla. Audhumbla, a primeval cow whose milk Ymir fed from. The prose Edda also states that 3 gods killed Ymir, the brothers Odin, Vili, and Ve. The details that upon Ymir's death his blood caused an immense flood. Scholars have debated as to what gods... Scholars have debated as to what extent Snorri's account of Ymir is an attempt to synthesize a coherent narrative for the purpose of the prose Edda, and to what extent Snorri drew from traditional material outside of the corpus that he cites. By way of historical linguistics and comparative mythology, scholars have linked Ymir to Tuisto, the Proto-Germanic being attested by Tacitus in his 1st century ethnography of Gaemania, and have identified Ymir as an echo of a primordial being reconstructed in Proto-Indo-European mythology. So Ymir, again, one of those really primeval, primordial type beings that existed kind of before even really the formation of the set mythologies that we would like to draw information and inspiration from for our modern stories, right? I need to find just... My bad, you're late. No, you're fine, bro. Ain't nobody late. I've just literally been like reading Wikipedia and kind of trying to draw some small connections between it and One Piece. Of old was the age when Ymir lived. Sea nor cool waves nor sand there were. Earth had not been, nor heaven above, but a yawning gap and grass nowhere. Then sought the gods their assembly seats, the holy ones in council held, to find who should raise the race of dwarves. Out of Brimir's blood and the legs of Blaine, out of Ymir's flesh was fashioned the earth, and the mountains were made of his bones, the sky from the frost-cold giant's skull, and the ocean out of his blood. Interesting. Literally tore the man apart and used him to create the world. Hey, anybody else want to draw some connections to the giant serpent soaked in blood? The great red serpent that Dory and Brogy talk about when they're doing their Hakoku sovereignty off of Little Garden. I think that's probably pretty crazy. Prose Edda. Ymir is mentioned in 2 books in the Prose Edda, the Gjalfaginninga and then the Skaldaskaparmal. In the first mention, Odin, or his 3 faces, are telling King Gylfi how things came to be. The trio explained that the first world to exist was Muspelheim, a glowing, fiery southern region consisting of flames, uninhabitable by non-natives. After many ages, Niflheimer was made, and within it lies a spring, Vegelmir, from which 11 rivers flow. Gylfi asks the 3 what things were like before mankind, continues that these icy rivers were called Elivegar, ran so far from their spring source that the poisonous matter that flows within them became hard like the clinker that comes from a furnace, like slag. It turned to ice, and so when this ice came to a halt and stopped flowing, The vapor that rose up from the poison went in the same direction and froze to rime. This rime increased layer upon layer across the Ginnunga Gap. Odin adds that the northern part of Ginnunga Gap was heavy with ice and rime, and vapor and blowing came inward from this, yet the southern part of Ginnunga Gap was clear on account of the sparks and molten flecks flying from Muspelheim. The third assesses that just as from Niflheim there was coldness in all things grim, so what was facing close to Muspelheim was hot and bright, but Ginnunga Gap was mild and as windless sky. Odin adds that when rime and hot air meet, it thawed and dripped, and the liquid intensely dropped. This liquid fell into the shape of a man, and so he was named Ymir, and known among the Jotnar as Argelmir, all from which descend. In support of these two names, third quotes stanza from, Gylfi asks how generations come from Ymir, how other beings came into existence, and if Ymir was considered a god. Odin says that Ymir was no god, and he was evil, and all his descendants. Odin explains that Ymir is the ancestor of all Jotnar, and that when Ymir slept, he sweated, and from his left and right arm grew a male and a female, and his left leg produced a son, and his right leg... and his left leg produced a son... and his left leg produced a son with his right leg. Fucking weird. And from them came generations. Gylfi, or Ganglieri, asks where Ymir lived and what sustained him. Odin explains that the Drips next produced a cow named Aurthumbla, and from her teats flowed 4 rivers of milk, and from it fed Ymir. Gylfi asks what the cow fed from, uncovered that evening. What the cow fed from, and Odin responds that the cow licked salty rime stones. The first day Aurthumbla licked the rime stones it uncovered from the ice. This man named Buri, and he was large and powerful, beautiful to behold. Buri had a son, Bor, who married a Jotun, Besla, the daughter of Bjorthorn. The two had 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Ve. Hai adds that Odin and his brothers must be the rulers of heaven and earth. It is our opinion that this must be what he is called. This is the name of one who is the greatest and most glorious that we know. You would well to agree to call him that too. Hai relates that Odin, Vili, and Ve killed Ymir, and his body produced so much blood that from his wounds that within it drowned all the Jotnar but 2, who too survived and repopulated with the Jotnar. Gylfi asks if they believe what trio to be gods, and what the 3 then did after slaying Ymir. Hai says that the trio took the body into the middle of Ginnunga Gap, and from his flesh fashioned the earth, from his blood the sea and lakes, from his bones rock, scree, stones, his teeth, molars and bones. Just as Hai adds that from his gushing wounds they created the sea that surrounds the earth. Third says that the trio took his skull and placed it above the earth and made it the sky. They placed the sky above the earth, and to hold the sky up, they placed 4 dwarfs, Nordi, Sudri, Ostri, and Vestri, at its 4 corners. Interesting. So, it just keeps going. Basically, okay. Yeah. I think I have a good enough grasp of it now. So, the Nordic mythos comes about because you have this primordial void. One side's hot, one side's cold. One side produces lava, one side produces ice. In the center, when they came together and mixed, a guy was born, a Ymir, a Jotun, a giant, particularly perhaps an ancient giant, perhaps a frost giant. And then, from him, things happened, right? His progenitors created gods. Celestial dragons? Anyone? And from his blood, the sea. And when he died, it created a great flood that drowned everyone but Odin, Vili, and Ve, and a couple other Jotnar. So there's a great flood at the death of an ancient giant whose skull was used for what? Oh, to hold up the sky. Where do we see a giant skull dome at? On top of what mountain? Okay. And they say they used his bones and teeth for the mountains and stones. Yeah, I mean, seems pretty cool. And the great giant serpent soaked in blood, Jormungandr could be, or could also just be, that's like Ymir's body, just laying there. Oh god, I'm being hit with a massive wave of exhaustion. Yeah. But that's kind of the general beginnings of the Nordic mythos. And touching on that, I mean, we can really get into drawing some crazy parallels, at least for the most recent things. We have Emu, right? I, Mu. I, Void. Potentially Mother Void. Potentially the primal Void. The one that predates everything and generates everything. The void in which all things come to exist. And then what we also see is Aokiji and Akainu being the biggest military forces. You have what three big military forces under the world government? Ice, magma, light. Oh, light. Interesting. Light. That's a pretty important one. The sun. Light being a thing that exists is pretty important. You got to be able to see. So, you have the three primordial kind of concepts, and then Emu, the void standing above them. We know there was a flood. We can surmise that the old Joy Boy was perhaps a giant, an ancient giant, one might say. One could hazard a guess. And there's what ancient giants do we know? Ors Jr. Where's Ors Jr. at? Oh, we don't know. But his body could have been taken by Gecko Moria. I'll tell you what, Ors Jr. was killed by 3 people. He was killed by what? Ymir was killed by who? Odin, Vili, and Ve, the All-Father, Vili and Ve, creature brothers. What was Little Ors Jr. killed by? Dofi, Kuma, Gecko Moria. I mean, all I'm saying is, the parallels are there. The parallels are there. They're very there. I mean, big old Or's body was frozen for a long, long time, man. Yeah. And I mean, even Jaguar D. Saul was frozen, and he's a giant too. Hey, I mean, even Dorian Brogy almost got frozen in wax. Almost. as if they were covered in rhyme. And a heavenly cow? A heavenly cow? Okay, I need to stop. But yeah, there's plenty of connections to be drawn here. I just wanted to kind of get this jumped into and going, get a little bit of an overview. There's 1.5 billion connections, and yeah, the next time I do a NorsePiece stream, I think what I'm gonna be doing is starting a reread through the series, and what we're gonna just do is reread it and reread it with the lens of Norse mythology painted over it, and we're gonna take notes uh, and try and draw connections as we go. I think that's probably gonna be my main thing for a little bit right now. Um, yeah, and in the meantime, I think other things that I might be doing on the random will be random like sketching or hangout streams where we're reacting to videos or looking at things, talking about random stuff. Um, Please drop a like, drop a follow. Please share me around. I appreciate everybody who stopped by and came through. I know we didn't do a ton of talking or a ton of theorizing because I was really kind of just mainly wanting to really hit on and kind of talk about specifically the Nordic mythology and some of the misconceptions that we can have about it due to the modern day stuff. And I really wanted to pull up just kind of hardcore factual historically aligned things that would be used as actual like references and research by someone who was looking into trying to incorporate those aspects and themes into their story on a grand scale, right? Which Oda is obviously doing. It's not like he just gave an eyeball and only like knows 2 or 3 times, or only knows like a couple of the things that some random people have told him, and then like Marvel movies. There's no way, right? We know that Oda is a particular guy and that he does tons of research and work into looking into things. So I just kind of wanted to get more of a really closer guard to it. And obviously we'll be doing more specifically deep dive sections. This one particularly was more focused on Ymir because the whole ancient giant ores thing has been floating around in my head, but also the primordial void and the concept of light, heat, and ice, and darkness all interacting in some way to bring about the world. And then the Great Flood problem. Just tons of things, man. Tons of things that you can see kind of in tiny influences, but yeah, going forward, this is probably going to be a more staple thing on my channel where I pull up specifically aligned aspects of the Norse mythos as we're going through and either reading or talking about other people's theories, my theories, what have you. But yeah, again, thank you for coming through. I appreciate everybody who did, and I apologize if today's stream wasn't as investing or invigorating as it usually is because of the fact that we were mainly just reading Wikipedia articles talking about history and the potential ties that it could somewhat have. More so, I just wanted to get a look at it and get a feel for it, start stewing on it, get in that mindset where I'm thinking about these connections, so that way the next time we get into it and when we're going through that first reread section, it feels like we're actually like making connections and seeing things potentially. But on that note, I love you guys. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate everybody who came through to the stream and listened to me ramble and jabber on about random things. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I hope you guys get the chance to check out the VOD and that there was useful information encapsulated in here that got your brains a stirring. Again, signing off.